Article 25 of the Charter. This is now before you in document number S7621. This resolution provides for mandatory sanctions on the export of those commodities which are of critical importance to Rhodesia's foreign trade and the import of arms and military supplies. Sir, I know that there are those who say that this is insufficient and urge the use of force. My government have frequently made plain their position on this. I should only like today to add one word to it, and that is this. We all know from experience that it is easy to start to use force, but often very difficult to see just where it will lead or how it will be possible to control or stop it. In the mind of everyone here in this room today, there are not only past examples, but very pertinent present ones to remind us of the truth of that. In our view, therefore, the immediate need is to take the next step of applying deliberately, responsibly, and universally selective mandatory sanctions on certain critical commodities. These economic measures are both more certain of success and far more susceptible of proper control. I will deal in a moment with how I suggest these commodities should be selected. In approaching the question of intensity, very relevant to our present situation, and the resolution which I'm putting before you has been drafted in that sense. Another consideration in our mind has been the need to safeguard the essential economic interests of all countries represented in this organization, and in particular of neighboring countries in southern Africa who are specially vulnerable for geographical reasons. And so I can say this with real understanding because of the great burden which we in Britain have accepted ourselves, especially in relation to our balance of payments during this last year. We must, the Rhodesian economy we seek to effect. We are entitled, Mr. President, to expect that when the Council has taken this action, all members of the United Nations will fulfill their obligations and apply loyally the sanctions which will have become binding when the resolution now before us has been approved. The first step is to lay down the effective sanctions. If, and it is at this moment entirely hypothetical, any country were to decide that it could not conform with the Council's decision, this would of course create a new situation which would in due course no doubt be raised. But we are proposing, sir, selective sanctions against Rhodesia only. Not only must we proceed step by step in dealing with this allowed economic damage to the illegal regime. This means blocking the main holes in the existing sanctions program. In some cases, Rhodesia has continued exporting to her traditional customers, and in others, she has succeeded in obtaining alternative markets to the traditional markets now denied her. Thirdly, sir, the commodities should be those against which sanctions could be most effectively applied by our fellow members. On this basis, we suggest that the commodities most appropriate for selection should be asbestos, iron ore, chrome, pig iron, sugar, tobacco, copper, meat and meat products, and hides, skins, and leather. These commodities are the most important Rhodesian exports which can be identified and controlled. Together, their value at 1965 levels was £84 million per annum. If the sanctions on those commodities are effectively applied, and the essence of our proposal is that it lies within the power of each of us effectively to apply them, the result on the Rhodesian economy would be immediately damaging. The continued application of these sanctions by member states would be seen to deny any future to the essential industries of the country. The reduction of earnings must lie simply and directly on each member state to prevent the importing of or the trading in these commodities in their territories or the shipment of them by vessels or aircraft of their registration. Provision, sir, is made in the resolution for member states to report to the Secretary General the action they have taken to this end. I know that the powers necessary to carry out the requirements of the resolution are not normally held by certain member states. But, sir, such powers can be taken under the authority of this mandatory resolution and should, I am sure, be seen as preferable to more complicated and undiscriminating measures of control. Mr. President, we have been consulting very widely, both before and since I came here, and I appreciate the strong measure of support that exists for the inclusion of oil in the mandatory sanctions. If an amendment in this sense were to be made in acceptable terms, my delegation would not oppose it. I say this on the basis of the full understanding which it is all clear also exists among delegations here of the importance of not allowing sanctions to escalate into economic confrontation with third countries. It is important that Britain will proceed to the related further step which we have already undertaken to carry out in those circumstances. Namely, we will withdraw all previous proposals for a constitutional settlement which have been made to the Rhodesians, and in particular, we will not thereafter be prepared to submit to the British Parliament any settlement which involves independence before majority rule. Members, in a sensible, practical, effective, and above all sustainable program of sanctions such as I have outlined. If it is to succeed, all members, and I repeat all members, must put their international responsibilities first. But I can think of no case where these international responsibilities would conflict with real national interests. If all members were to agree on this, I see no reason why we shouldn't achieve rapidly, by peaceful means, in accordance with the Charter, a just solution of the Rhodesian problem. I believe the Rhodesian people would, sooner rather than later, come to see that a return to their legal constitution would be preferable to cumulative economic atrophy and paralysis, to put it no higher, and to continued rejection by the world. Loyally together, in the spirit of the resolution, by any one of us in whose power it is to ensure its success, could bring incalculable consequences, and not only threaten the peace, but bring measureless misery and ruin to the whole of southern Africa. When this resolution is passed by the Council, as I firmly believe it will be not only in the interests of every one of us, it will also be the solemn duty of every one of us to see that it is effectively carried out. Mr. President, I thank you, and subject to the usual understanding, I waive my right to consecutive interpretation.
No teniendo y habiendo hecho las consultas
tous les membres du Conseil